The public is conditioned to watch the skies for incoming ballistic missiles. Media fixates on regional accelerants, like the stark warnings between Israel and Iran. This is a fatal misdirection. The Pentagon budgets for kinetic defenses, like the proposed Golden Dome missile shield in Greenland. A system analysts note would be a monumental expenditure. This is a 20th century solution to a 21st century vector of attack. The primary vector of strategic assault is no longer kinetic. It is silent. While defense contractors plan for interceptors, adversaries plan for severance. According to reports from RUSI and CSIS, the critical points of failure are not cities. They are the undersea fiber optic cables that constitute the central nervous system of the global economy. One cut is a regional outage. Coordinated cuts are a systemic kill switch. Simultaneously, the attack moves to low Earth orbit. The objective is not destruction, but temporary denial, satellite blinding. Dazzling lasers and high-powered microwave weapons can render GPS and communications satellites inert without creating a debris field. The result is instantaneous and catastrophic. This dual-vector attack creates the ultimate asymmetric weapon, the blind Leviathan, a superpower with its unmatched kinetic arsenal of carriers and nuclear submarines, is rendered deaf and blind. It possesses total military supremacy, but has lost the network to command it. It cannot process transactions, it cannot direct assets, it cannot launch a coordinated response. It can only thrash. The pivot to asymmetric warfare is not a strategic choice. It is a mathematical function of insolvency. When a state's domestic liabilities exceed its capacity for kinetic power projection, its entire operational doctrine is inverted. Conventional strength becomes a fatal drain on a fractured balance sheet. Examine the Russian Federation. CSIS analysis confirms that the primary constraint on its military operations is not a lack of hardware, but the domestic economic blowback from a protracted, unpopular war. The Kremlin is facing a solvency crisis. It cannot afford a symmetric dollar-for-dollar conflict with the West. This is not weakness. It is a calculated pivot. When kinetic options are too expensive, the adversary attacks the opponent's cheapest vulnerability. For the West, that vulnerability is its sovereign debt, reflected in instruments like CD rates. Russia's leverage is no longer its tank divisions. It is its control over energy flows. By offering discounted crude to rising powers like India, it forces a fracture in global energy markets, creating the exact volatility that stresses Western economies. This is the blueprint of the solvency crisis. A state, bankrupted by the high cost of maintaining symmetric defenses, is forced to weaponize economics. Regional fires, like the standoff between Israel and Iran, are not distractions. They are accelerants for this economic attack, designed to spike energy prices and strain a system already buckling under its own debt. The weakness is the trigger for the asymmetric pivot. The calculus of kinetic conflict has been permanently inverted. It is no longer a symmetric contest of force on force, but an asymmetric attack on solvency. A core analysis from the Royal United Services Institute, or RUSI, quantifies this new reality. They map the cost-exchange ratio. A single main battle tank, a $5 million asset, is now routinely neutralized by a $500 first-person view drone. This is not a battlefield trade. It is a 10,000 to 1 economic liquidation. This mechanism is what strategists term the democratization of violence, the ability for smaller adversaries to leverage cheap disposable technology to inflict unsustainable financial attrition on a superior kinetic power. In this environment, every high-cost asset, such as a proposed missile defense system in Greenland, ceases to be a shield and becomes a fatal liability on the national balance sheet. The adversary's objective is not to win the war, but to bankrupt the state that wages it. The regional conflicts dominating media cycles are not the core threat. They are laboratories. RUSI and CSIS analysts have modeled scenarios where internal instability in nations like South Africa, or even Canada, is leveraged as a gray zone. These are not random events. They are controlled environments for staging supply chain attacks and testing social fragmentation protocols before deployment against primary economic targets. These gray zones serve as launch points for accelerants. The growing unrest between Israel and Iran, punctuated by stark warnings from the Israeli UN ambassador, provides a perfect case study. For an adversary practicing asymmetric warfare, this is not a regional squabble. It is a live-fire exercise in market manipulation, a predictable lever to inject volatility into global energy and shipping, precisely to stress the financial architecture of the West. The ultimate vector is energy. India's strategy to deepen ties with Russia and the Gulf is not mere diplomacy. It is a data point indicating systemic energy market fragmentation. This decoupling allows adversaries to engineer price shocks with greater efficiency. The objective is to attack the West's core liability, sovereign debt. The resulting volatility targets the cost of capital, making the system's solvency, measured by proxies like CD interest rates, dangerously unstable. This economic bleed exposes the West's fatal miscalculation. While strategists debate the kinetic value of a Greenland-based missile defense system, they ignore the mathematical certainty of the attack. The adversary's blueprint is not to defeat the shield, but to make it unaffordable. By using gray zone operations to drain liquidity and trigger a solvency crisis, high-cost kinetic defenses transform from assets into fatal liabilities, accelerating the very bankruptcy they were meant to prevent. The final decision to initiate global war is not made in a cabinet room. It is made in a concrete bunker by one commander in under 6 minutes. The protocol is known as launch-on warning. It is a systemic tripwire. If sensors detect an incoming nuclear strike, you launch your retaliation before impact. Waiting for confirmation means your arsenal is vaporized on the ground. You cease to exist. This is not a choice. It is a pre-calculated response. However, in the era of asymmetric economic warfare, the primary vector of attack is not the missile itself, but the data feed to the sensor. Analysts at CSIS confirm the doctrine's core vulnerability. A sophisticated cyber attack can blind early warning radar systems or, more critically, inject false positives. This creates what strategists call the fog of digital war. The commander now faces a zero-sum calculation. The screen is black. Is it a system failure, or is it a decapitation strike already in motion? If he waits, he risks total annihilation. If he launches based on a digital ghost, he begins a war that ends everything. The high kinetic cost of the Greenland-based defense system becomes irrelevant. Its digital brain has been turned into a liability. An adversary no longer needs to bankrupt you with an arms race. They can force you to bankrupt yourself with a single catastrophic decision. The next phase is not a declaration of war. It is a calibration shot. Adversaries have mapped the West's primary liability, its solvency. They understand high-cost kinetic defenses, like the proposed Greenland missile shield, are mathematical traps designed to accelerate bankruptcy, not prevent attack. When your debt is the target, every carrier group is a liability. Regional conflicts, per Israeli diplomatic warnings to Iran, and energy market realignments, such as India's balancing of Russian oil, are not separate crises. They are systemic accelerants. Each disruption is engineered to inject volatility, forcing central banks to manage inflation with higher rates. According to CSIS analysis, rising CD rates are not a symptom of a domestic economy. They are the direct targeting of the West's financial center of gravity. The calibration event will therefore be asymmetric, silent, and economically precise. Within the next 12 months, expect a targeted disruption of a critical non-military node. The vector will be a logic bomb, or localized electronic warfare event targeting a primary ACH or Fedwire transaction processing data center in the New York-New Jersey corridor. The outage will last under 12 hours, halting a significant percentage of U.S. financial settlement. It will be officially attributed to a cascading system failure or a solar flare anomaly. The objective is not kinetic destruction, but to demonstrate a kill switch on American economic liquidity. It is the launch-on warning protocol for total financial war.